Hey guys, here's some tips on restoring steel radio chassis. What I've got up here at my workbench is a Philco 3810 and next to it a Philco 38.7. Both very similar chassis. The one on the right is from the first radio I ever restored. The cabinet's sitting over here. It's a pretty cool Art Deco design. When I first got this, it was fairly rusty, even rustier and dirtier than this unrestored 38.7. The first thing I did was just to do some basic cleaning with something like ammonia glass cleaner and some paper towels and Q-tips, just to get all the dirt and grime out of it so I could see better what I was dealing with. After that, I took off the components that were easy to get at. For instance, these capacitors, you're going to be replacing them at any rate. Whether or not you restuff them is up to you, but you're going to be disconnecting them electrically. Once you do that, you can just loosen up this screw and they pop right out. I cleaned this one up with some Brasso and a little scouring pad and some warm water. Aluminum polishes up fairly well. The tube shields, if they're steel like this, galvanized, you can clean them up a bit, but they're never going to look all that good. So just use your own judgment on that. After I cleaned this up to prevent any more rust from reforming, I took a scouring pad and some WD-40. Once you've got that taken down to the point you feel comfortable taking it to, in this case I even took off the tuning capacitor. It was a bit of work, but I think it was worth it because it was actually quite rusty under here originally. Speaking of rust, to remove that from chassis, my favorite thing to use is navel jelly. It's a gooey pink liquid that I apply with a Q-tip and put it on and let it sit for 5 or 10 minutes. If there's still rust present, like here, it's fairly deeply pitted. I've gone over this a few times already, but there's still a little left. Just put a little more on. It'll dry out eventually, so you want to keep putting some on. When you're satisfied that the rust is gone, clean it off with a damp sponge. And once you've got all the rust gone to your satisfaction, take a scouring pad and WD-40 and go over the whole chassis. That'll clean up any residue that's remaining, and WD-40 is actually a rust inhibitor that will help prevent any future rust from coming back. I did this about 5 years ago, and no rust has come back whatsoever. Some people like to put a clear coat of lacquer over it once the rust is removed. If you want to, sure, go ahead. It won't hurt anything, and it certainly will protect it. But in my experience, I haven't needed to. Now, I'm also in the Midwest, in Chicago actually, and it's fairly dry in this environment. If you were down, say, in the Gulf, like New Orleans, where it's really warm and humid, you might want to put some more consideration into preventing rust from coming back. Something else on this, the transformer case is fairly dirty. Some of the paint's come off, and it's starting to rust a little bit. This set, it's looking really good, so I'm not going to do anything with this. But you can take this off. If you want to, you can even strip all the paint off, like with that citrus strip I showed in the Bakelite video, and repaint it. If you really want to go crazy, notice there's a little A painted down here, same on this other set. Take notes of all that stuff, photographs, and you can stencil a new A back onto it. This radio also had a dirty potentiometer on the volume control, so I took it out and put a little spritz of contact cleaner into it. What you do is there's a little bit of a gap between the potentiometer body and the leads coming out. Just give a little spritz. I don't want to do it here because I've already got a bunch in there, but you get a bunch of foamy goop coming out, and work it back and forth. Wipe up any excess, and then I also put a little bit of oil. There's a collar around here, like a locking washer on the shaft. A little 3-in-1 oil on that, and also on the capacitor points. See, there's various sections here. One on the back here, and at each intersection. And there's even some gears and bearings on this one. A little 3-in-1 oil on all those points. Really helps free up the action on this. So this one's actually working really smoothly now. What else? What else? Oh, if you notice, this capacitor clamp is kind of yellow and nasty looking. That's that cadmium plating. There's a little bit on the chassis here. I mentioned that in a couple of my other videos. You can see this one is nice and shiny. I'll show you how I did that over at the sink. Okay, here we are over by my utility sink. When you work with acid, definitely follow the directions. This rust remover is acid. It's a combination of phosphoric and muriatic or hydrochloric acid. So here's one of those capacitor clamps that I've cleaned up and it's all nice and shiny. And here's an old nasty dirty one. What you can do is, I just use a synthetic bristle brush and brush on the acid, and kind of like in those old Tarnex commercials, it will start turning clean almost immediately. And continue on. I have to do this one-handed, it's just a little awkward for me. So let it sit for a few seconds, and once it seems to be pretty clean, rinse it off. You can see most of that goop is gone. Once you got cleaned up to your satisfaction, again use a non-conductive scouring pad and WD-40 and clean it up, and you should be good to go for a long time. I keep mentioning non-conductive pads. Don't make the mistake and use steel wool on any of this stuff, because those little fibers of steel will break off and get into your radio and cause all kinds of havoc. Trust me, I know, I've been there. Got one more thing to show you back in the workshop. Okay, one last thing about these radios. There are numerous rubber parts originally on these radios. There's rubber feet in the corners to protect the, well, basically the whole chassis would float on a cushion of rubber. The idea being that the vibrations from the speaker in the cabinet wouldn't get back into the radio, because that vibration could actually affect the tuning capacitor or the tubes, and they would cause feedback. So not only is the chassis on rubber mounts, but the tuning capacitor was too. Now the original on this one, I don't even have them anymore because they got very crusty and hardened and rotted away. These are still the originals on this guy, and they're hard as a rock. Well, believe it or not, you can actually buy reproductions. Restoring vintage radios is a growing hobby, and there are guys out there like Renovated Radios, Antique Electronics Supply, Just Radios. Just do a Google search for vintage radio supplies and you'll find this stuff. And yeah, you can get new rubber feet. So you can get a set of 4 fairly inexpensively, and you just pop them back on. Likewise, the capacitor. These little sleeves slide onto the capacitor mounts, like so. Again, hard for me to do it one-handed, but you get the idea. These slide on, and then you pop the tuning capacitor back on. You have a nice cushioned, cushioned tuning capacitor. Likewise, there's all kinds of stuff you can get. Like if the label's shot on your radio, you can get new water slide decals. This grill cloth is actually a reproduction. Mine had a big tear in it. Sometimes even the dial glass or dial phase you can get reproductions of, knobs. Especially if you go with one of the more common radios like Zenith, RCA, or Philco. Otherwise, search around on eBay or ask guys on the forums, Antique Radio Forum and VideoKarma.org. Both have a pretty active user community that will be more than happy to help you out. If you have any questions or comments, please post. And I would be more than happy to go into more detail on some of this stuff. I know I went kind of quick, but you have a 10-minute limit with YouTube videos. Hope that helps you guys. Over and out.